Hi, I'm Scott Flowers with Cloud Ninjas. Today we're here to start a new series on the Dell PowerEdge R530 server, and specifically in this video we're going to cover CPUs. But hit that like and smash that subscribe because we're going to cover a whole lot of things. We're going to cover memory, CPUs, hard drives, NVMe, how to install VMware, how to update your BIOS, how to do mass updates, plus much more. Let's get going. Well, hey, thanks for stopping by today to learn a little bit more about the Dell PowerEdge R530 server. We're going to start this series off with CPUs, so let's get rolling. So there are two CPUs inside. It's an LGA2011-3 socket, which means it takes Intel Xeon E5-2600 and E5-2600 V4. I will note with the V4, though, you need to make sure you have an updated BIOS, otherwise you might not be able to use the V4. We've seen customers who think they have either a bad server or a bad CPU, and really you just need to pop in a V3 real quick, update the BIOS, and you'll be able to run V4s. If it's not working, that could be a problem for someone out there. People ask us all the time, hey, what CPUs do you recommend for my Dell PowerEdge R530 server? And really it depends on what application that you're looking to do. So what I always tell people is for low-end procs, we have a couple of CPUs that we like, the E5-2620 V3 and the E5-2630 V3. I like those because really, if you're on a budget, those are relatively inexpensive. The 2620 V3 is a hex core 2.4 gigahertz. The 2630 V3 is a 8-core 2.4 gigahertz. Both of them again are great solutions. If you're looking for that kind of sweet spot, the value CPUs that I like to call them, the E5-2660 V3, the E5-2670 V3, and the E5-2680 V3, all are also great procs that are going to be a little bit better than the low-end ones. Going to cost a little bit more, but they're not going to break the bank as a whole, and they're still going to be really great options. So with the 2660 V3, that's going to be a 10-core. With the 2673 V3, it's going to be a 12-core. With the 2680 V3, it's going to be a 12-core, and it'll be 2.6 gigahertz, 2.3, and 2.5. Okay, so as far as the high end, which is a great option when you're talking about the 530 as a whole, because sometimes people are looking to get a box that you can put in 40 cores in and still keep it for only a couple of $1,000s. You go buy a 40-core proc server brand new, that could be upwards of 10 grand, right? So this could be a great option if you want a high-end CPU and you don't really want to spend a ton of money. So there's several that we recommend. I'll give you 5 great options: the E5-2690 V4, the E5-2695 V4, the E5-2697 V4, the 98 V4, and the 99 V4. All 5 of these are great options. Again, they're going to be more expensive than the value CPUs, but they're not horribly expensive overall. You look at like some of these Intel scalable CPUs or the AMD EPYC CPUs that are coming out right now, which are pretty awesome CPUs, but those are really expensive. I mean, some of them are 2, 3, 4, 5 grand for a proc. That's kind of insane. Now, obviously, if you're doing super intense applications, you're going to need that, right? But not everybody needs that, and you might still want to be able to say, hey, I got a 40-core box, or I got a 28-core box, or whatever the case may be. So with the 2690 V4, you can get 14 cores. You can go up to the next one, and it's going to be 18, 18, 20, and 22. So and we'll throw all the speeds in there as well for you. But again, those are just all great options on the high-end side. Okay. Now I want to actually open this up since we know more about the options. I want to show you how to remove your old CPU and install the new upgrade if you are looking to upgrade your machine. Before we do, I'm going to grab my ESD gloves and be right back. Alright, so we'll show you how to install this now that we have our ESD gloves on. So I went ahead and put on top of our R530 here all the necessary ingredients to do this upgrade. Okay, so you can just have a regular screwdriver if you need. We got an electric one. Here's the CPUs we're upgrading to. These are actually E5-2640 V4s is what we're doing for this build. We have our trusty rag to clean up the old CPU that we're taking out, and our thermal grease to put on the CPU that we put in. So we'll go ahead and toss all this to the side for now. I just wanted to show you what we needed. Now to open this, it's going to be like really any Dell server you've ever been into. Just make sure the latch is set to unlock, pop it open, lift it up. Really simple. And once you are in, I'm going to go ahead and point out a couple of different components since this is just going to be the first part of the series. You're going to have your back plane, you're going to have all your different fans here, you're going to have your air baffle, which when you lift up will be your CPUs and all your DIMM slots. You're going to have your redundant power supplies back here, and you're going to have your different PCI slots via the riser here. So that's pretty much the heart of it as a whole. As far as where you install the RAID, the NIC will show you that as well too. So alright, now we're going to go ahead and pop out the air baffle, but I did want to note on the air baffle, it does point out this is CPU 1 and this is CPU 2, which is helpful. It says it on the motherboard as well, but where it says it on the motherboard is under the CPU, so it's kind of hard to see. So I do like that the air baffle does show that. So we're going to start here with CPU 1, and I'm going to show you how I like to do it. You can do it any way you want really, but I like to go zigzag, kind of like you're changing a tire. I just feel like it helps as far as relieving some of the overall pressure. So you need to get good overall pressure pushing down here, not too hard, but enough that you don't strip the screws, because these screws get stripped. It is definitely a pain to get them out. So just be careful with them, and of course push down hard enough, but not too hard where you're jamming it into the motherboard or anything like that. Alright, I'm going to do this one more time, make sure. Yep, okay. So now when you lift it up, there's a couple things I like to note. You don't know, unless, you put it in a long time ago, I guess, but you don't really know how much thermal grease is going to be down there until you open it. Sometimes there's just a ton of thermal grease, so when you lift it up, one of the things I do recommend is to lift it up kind of slowly and just straight up, so that there is any chunks of old, dry thermal paste that's flaking off. It's not just getting all over your board. So I'm just going to lift it nice and slow, straight up. And luckily this doesn't look too bad here. So one of the things that I will say, it depends on when you want to clean it. Some people just take it out, toss it to the side because they don't care about the old CPU. You might be interested in reusing the CPU or reselling the CPU or just giving it to a friend or whatever the case may be. So if that's your plan, I actually recommend, if it's not too bad in here, cleaning it up while it's still in here. The only reason I like that is just because it's still firm into the socket. The only potential problem here is you got to make sure you protect the pins. We talked about 2011 pins in there. If a little bit of thermal paste gets in there, it can just wipe out the whole socket. It can basically mean you have to get a new motherboard because it's so hard to get that out. It's just, you'll see the pins. We'll scroll in a minute. It's just so fragile. So I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to just be really diligent and careful here, where I'm just kind of getting a little bit of this off, and I'm going to try not to spread it onto the brackets themselves, because again, if it gets onto the brackets, when you go to close them, or you go to close it and put the new CPU in, you could potentially have the brackets drop some of this thermal paste in. And again, my whole concern is just taking care of the machine itself and not damaging anything while we're in here. So honestly, it looks good enough for me. I'm going to take it out and I'm going to put it into our tray over here where we already have some open slots to put them in. So it's really easy to take it out as a whole. You do have to be really careful though, because this is the point when a lot of people get kind of careless, and you can accidentally scrape the part or scrape the corner over here that I'll show you in a second, and just wipe out again some of these pins that you have to be very careful for. So get it out, you're just going to push this clip down, you're going to push it in. This is going to pop up, and same thing, you're going to push this down and push it in, and when you do, there's a clip right here that's actually going to release the bracket that covers the socket. So I'll show you. Push down here, and this right here, you'll see it just goes up and down. Alright, and one of the things that I like to do is if you actually push back down on this, it's going to lift this up and make it kind of easy to just pull this up. And one of the things I like to do is check inside here. Sometimes you will have some thermal paste that's caked in there. This would be the time where you would grab the rag and clean it. We don't really have anything too bad, but I'll just show you just in case. This would be a good time to do that because, again, if you have it caked in here and you go to put it back down, it could very easily get into your pins. And again, it's all about protecting the machine. That's what we care about here, right? Okay, so when you pull it out, couple things. I like to personally grab from the sides right here as opposed to right here. There's just a lot more space on the side as far as how the socket is set up. There's just not as much plastic in the way, and you can easily grab it and have a firmer grasp on the CPU. I personally like to pull straight up. I've seen people who will kind of pin it a little bit, kind of like this, into the corner where the two corners are kind of pushed up against the socket, and then lift straight up. That's fine as well. I personally like to just go straight up. The only thing you really want to avoid doing is when you pick it up where you kind of go like this, because then you can drag that corner and just wipe out a row of pins like it's nothing. So that's one of the things you need to be really careful about, okay? So I'm going to grab right here on the edges, lift straight up, and voila, we're done. It was just that easy, okay? So now we're going to put the new one in, but I did want to scroll in right now. I want to zoom in and show you. Look at all those pins. I've been talking about just how many there are, how fragile they are. If any thermal grease gets in there, if you accidentally bump it with your finger, if you accidentally bump it with the CPU, you can easily damage the motherboard. This is literally the most sensitive part, the entire motherboard, so you just have to be so careful with it when you're working around it. You know, as a whole, the upgrade is easy, but you just, again, have to be careful. Take your time, take a few extra seconds, just be careful with it. The next thing that I wanted to point out is on the CPU, if you look right here, there's this gold arrow in the corner, okay? Now, if you look at the other ones, they don't have that gold arrow. It's just right here in this corner. If you look at the motherboard right here, there's also an arrow, okay? That's where you want to put the CPUs. Line up the arrows, okay? So we're going to come back in here. I'm going to get a good grasp on it, and we're going to put it right here in the corner and come straight down. And ran it. It's just that easy, but again, you want to just be careful, come in, and then just make sure you have it installed the right way, okay? So now here's the fun part. We get to use our messy thermal grease. So some people go overboard, put a ton, some people go underboard and don't put enough. So you really need a good balance here. Personally, I like to kind of draw a square. I just draw a little square and then just put some dots on the outside kind of around it. And then I like to fill in my square. So this way when I push the heatsink down, it's going to smash the thermal grease and it's going to push it to the side. Not too much though, where it goes over the side and potentially again gets into the socket or gets all over the brackets or the motherboard itself. Just enough, the right amount, okay? So now we're going to come back in here. So this thermal grease still needs to be cleaned. So I'm going to just clean this really quick. And you can make it even better than this, but just for demonstration purposes, this will be good enough. Go ahead and close the bracket. So we're going to go the opposite direction of what we did. We're going to push this down, make sure this clips up, push this back down, come down and over. Same thing, push this back down and over. And now we'll put the heatsink on. So now we're going to just line up the screws. All right, so we're going to line this up, get it set up properly. And then we're going to do our zigzag pattern again, and we're going to come back over here. And just like that, we've upgraded our CPU. So do us a favor, if you use Dell in your data center, or really HP, Supermicro, Cisco, IBM for that matter, we would love to help you out. We custom build servers for data centers all over the world. We carry a ton of Dell 13th Gen in stock, including, of course, the R530. Email us at sales@cloudninjas.com. That's sales@cloudninjas.com. We'd love the opportunity to earn your business and compare some quotes with your current vendors. And if you made it this far, hey, do us a favor. Click that like, smash that subscribe. Thanks for stopping by, guys.